I didn't grow up believing in ghosts. I believed in cold weather, bad luck, and the way panic can make you see things that aren't there. That's what I told myself for years, anyway. It's what I still tell myself when I wake up at night and swear I can hear that low, steady buzzing sound again, like a radio stuck between stations. This happened when I was 24, and I was working seasonal jobs wherever I could find them. That year, it was a small ski town that got busy in winter and turned into a quiet, empty place as soon as the snow started melting. I was staying in this cramped employee housing unit behind the lodge. It was basically a long hallway with rooms on each side, like a cheap motel, except you weren't paying for it. You were paying with your sanity. That's where I met Mason. Mason was older than me, maybe early 30s, and he had that tired look like he'd been doing seasonal work too long. We became friends the way people do when there's nothing else to do. Play cards, watch bad TV, drink cheap beer, talk about nonsense. One night, Mason told me about a place up on the mountain. Old radio relay station, he said, leaning back in a folding chair, arms behind his head. Way above the tree line. Like remote. I remember laughing a little. What's up there? Nothing, he said. That's the point. He told me it used to be part of some communications system years ago, something to bounce signals across the range. Then the tech changed, funding got cut, and the station got abandoned. He said there was an access road that had mostly washed out, and most people didn't even know it existed anymore. So why do you care? I asked. Mason's smile faded. He stared down at his hands like he was deciding how honest to be. Because I was up there once, he said, and I heard something. I waited, expecting a joke. But he didn't laugh. I heard a voice, he said quietly. On a radio that wasn't plugged in. I rolled my eyes. Okay. Yeah, he said, nodding. That's what I said too. But I'm telling you, man. I turned around. There was an old desk and a busted radio. No power. No cables. But it was making noise. I remember the way his voice got smaller when he said it, like he was scared someone might overhear. What did it say? I asked. He swallowed. It said my name. That should have been my sign to stop the conversation. But I was bored, and I didn't take Mason seriously enough. I was the kind of person who would rather go somewhere creepy than admit I was nervous. So I said, let's go up there. Mason stared at me. You're serious? Yeah, I said. We'll see what's really going on. He hesitated, then gave this small nod like he just agreed to something he didn't want to do. Tomorrow, he said. We go early. In and out. The next day, we packed like it was a real hike: water, snacks, a small first aid kit, flashlights even though it was daytime. Mason also brought a handheld radio, one of those shortwave ones that can scan frequencies. What's that for? I asked. He didn't answer right away. Then he said, if you hear it, you'll want proof. And if I hear it again, I want to know I'm not crazy. The access road started behind an old maintenance shed. It was blocked by a chain, but people had clearly walked around it before. The trail was more like a faded dirt track cutting through pines and rock. As we climbed, the town fell away behind us. The air got thinner and colder. The trees started spacing out. The wind started sounding different too, higher pitched, like it had more room to scream. After about 2 hours, we hit the tree line. Past that, the mountain looked empty. Just rocks, scrub, and snow in shaded pockets that hadn't melted yet. Mason pointed. There, he said. At first, I didn't see anything. Then I noticed the shape of it against the sky, an ugly, boxy building with a tall mast beside it. It looked like a scar on the ridge. The closer we got, the quieter Mason became. The building had a single metal door, half rusted, with an old warning sign that had been peeled and scratched. The windows were dirty and cracked, like eyes that didn't want to see. Mason grabbed the handle and pulled. It didn't budge. He tried again, harder. Nothing. Locked, I said. Mason walked around the side. There was a broken window low to the ground. The glass was gone, but the frame was jagged. We can get in, he said. Something about crawling through a broken window into a building on a lonely ridge felt like the kind of thing people do right before they die in horror movies. But I still went first, because I didn't want to look scared. Inside, the air was stale and metallic, like old pennies. The floor was littered with dust, dead insects, and bits of insulation. My footsteps sounded too loud. There were rooms divided by thin walls, a couple of old chairs, a desk with papers stuck to it like they'd been abandoned mid-task. And in the corner, like Mason had said, there was a radio. It sat on the desk, coated in dust. The front panel had knobs and a cracked display. It wasn't modern. It looked like something from decades ago. I stared at it, waiting for it to do something. Nothing. See? I said, trying to sound casual. Just junk. Mason didn't look convinced. He walked closer, hands hovering like he didn't want to touch it. Then we heard something else. A faint buzzing. At first, I thought it was the wind shaking a loose piece of metal outside. But the sound was steady. Not random. Like electrical interference. Mason's eyes went wide. It's starting, he whispered. I felt my stomach drop a little. Where's it coming from? Mason pointed to the desk. The old radio was making the sound. It wasn't loud, but it was definitely coming from it. The speaker grill vibrated slightly. I leaned in, and my skin prickled. I could smell it too, something sharp, like overheated plastic. Is there power? I asked. Mason shook his head, almost frantic. There's no way. The buzzing got louder. Then, through the static, a voice cut in. It wasn't clear. It wasn't like a normal radio broadcast. It sounded distant, like it was speaking through a tunnel. Mason! Mason stumbled back like he'd been slapped. My throat went dry. The voice said it again. Mason! I glanced at Mason, and he looked like he couldn't breathe. Okay, I said, forcing myself to talk. That's probably a prank. Someone's messing with us. Mason pointed at the radio, shaking. How? The voice shifted, and the static fluttered like it was alive. Then the voice said something else. Come closer. My skin went cold. I didn't realize I'd stepped back until my heel hit something behind me. I turned, expecting a chair. But there was nothing. Just empty space. The building suddenly felt smaller, like the walls had moved in while I wasn't looking. Mason grabbed his handheld radio and turned it on with trembling fingers. He started scanning frequencies. The handheld speaker hissed with static. Nothing else. Meanwhile, the old radio on the desk was still talking. Closer. Then it changed. The voice became sharper, clearer, like it was tuning itself. You brought him. Mason's eyes snapped to me. What? I mouthed. The radio speaker crackled. He doesn't believe. I felt my stomach twist. It wasn't just saying random creepy words. It was reacting to us. Mason whispered, "We need to go." I didn't argue. I moved toward the window we came through, but as I stepped, I heard a sound behind us. A soft scrape. Like a chair leg dragging over concrete. Both of us turned at the same time. The chair near the far wall, an old metal chair, had shifted. It was angled now, facing the desk. I stared at it, my mind trying to find a normal explanation. Wind? But there was no wind inside. No open doors. Just still, stale air. Mason's voice cracked. It wasn't like that. The radio hissed, then the voice returned, almost gentle. Stay. Mason grabbed my sleeve. Go. Now. We didn't climb out carefully this time. We shoved through the broken window, scraping our hands and arms on the metal frame. Outside, the cold air hit like a slap, and I felt like I could finally breathe again. We hurried down the slope, not running yet, but fast walking like our lives depended on it. Behind us, the wind howled around the building. Then Mason stopped. What? I said, already annoyed because stopping felt dangerous. Mason stared back at the station. I forgot something, he said. What did you forget? I snapped. He looked at me, and his face was pale. My radio, he said. The handheld. I dropped it. I stared at him. Forget it. It has my ID inside, he said like that mattered. And? No, I said. We're not going back. Mason's jaw clenched. He looked torn, like part of him knew I was right, and part of him couldn't let it go. Then the wind shifted. And we heard it. Not coming from the building. Not carried by the wind. It sounded like it was right behind us. A crackle of static. Like a radio turning on. Mason and I both spun around. There was nothing. Just rocks, snow patches, and empty mountain. The static got louder. Then a voice spoke, soft and close, like someone whispering right in your ear. Turn around. I froze. Mason's eyes widened. He whispered, Don't. But something inside me screamed to look. Like curiosity and fear were fighting, and fear was losing. I turned. There was still nothing. But I felt something. Like the air behind me was thicker. Like I was standing too close to a heat source, except it was cold. The static hissed again. Then the voice said my name. Not Mason's. Mine. Perfectly. Like it had known me the whole time. I felt my legs go weak. Mason grabbed me hard and pulled. Run! He yelled. We ran. Down the mountain, slipping on gravel, lungs burning, not stopping until we hit the first trees again. Even then, I kept expecting to hear that whisper behind me. We didn't speak until we were far enough down that the ridge was hidden. Mason bent over, hands on his knees, gasping. I leaned against the tree, shaking. What was that? I managed. Mason looked up slowly, eyes glossy with fear. I told you, he whispered. I told you. We never went back. Not for his radio. Not for proof. But here's the part that still messes with me. That night, back in the employee housing, Mason was quiet. Too quiet. I asked him if he was okay. He didn't answer. He was staring at the wall like he was listening to something I couldn't hear. Finally, he said, It followed us. I laughed nervously. No. It didn't. Mason turned his head slowly, and his eyes were wide and wet. I can hear it, he said. Hear what? He swallowed. The static, he whispered. It's in my room. I tried to tell him it was stress. That his mind was playing tricks. That maybe there was an actual radio somewhere nearby. But later, when I went to my room and shut the door, I heard it too. Faint. Like a whisper under the world. A steady crackle. And somewhere in it, like a voice trying to form words. I didn't sleep. The next morning, Mason was gone. No note. No goodbye. His room was empty, bed stripped, like he'd never been there. I asked the manager if he quit. The manager looked confused. Mason? He said. We don't have a Mason. I told him what he looked like. Where his room was. That he'd been working with me for weeks. The manager's face tightened like I was joking about something serious. That room's been empty all season, he said. I walked down the hallway to prove it. The door to Mason's room was unlocked. Inside, it was dusty. Cold. Completely empty. No bed. No clothes. No beer cans. Nothing. I stood there, heart pounding, and I swear to you, in that silent room, I heard it. A soft radio crackle. And a voice, distant and calm, like it was smiling. Closer. I used to think the desert was peaceful. I'd seen pictures, wide open land, big skies, quiet nights full of stars. People always talk about it like it's a place that clears your mind. But the desert has its own kind of darkness. Not the cozy kind. Not the quiet kind. It's the kind that makes you feel small. Like if you disappeared out there, the world wouldn't even notice. This story happened because I took a job I shouldn't have taken. I was broke, living month to month, and I found a listing online for short-term work, overnight site monitor. Easy money. Minimal duties. Remote location. The pay was higher than it should have been, and that should have been my first warning. The job was through a small private research group. Nothing government, nothing official, at least not on paper. They were testing environmental sensors out in the desert, and they needed someone to stay on site for a week at a time. When I called, the woman on the phone had a nice voice, like she was reading from a script. You'll be alone, she said. The nearest town is about 40 minutes away. We provide a cabin, food, water, and a satellite phone for emergencies. Alone didn't bother me. I actually liked the idea. Then she added, You will also be provided with strict instructions. That made me laugh a little. Like what? She paused. You'll see when you arrive. I told myself it was just company policy. Safety stuff. Don't wander. Don't touch equipment. So I said yes. 2 days later, I drove out there. The directions took me off the main road onto a dirt track that seemed to go nowhere. For miles, it was nothing but sand, scrub, and rocks. No signs. No people. No cell signal. Then I saw it, a small cabin, a shed, and a cluster of metal poles and boxes spread out like a weird garden. There was also a tall fence around the main equipment area. It looked new, and it didn't belong out there. A man was waiting outside the cabin. Tall, sunburned, wearing a hat low over his face. Name? He asked. I told him. He nodded, handed me a clipboard, and said, Sign. The paperwork was basic. Liability waivers, non-disclosure stuff. Then he gave me a laminated sheet. These are the rules, he said. I scanned them, expecting the usual. But the rules weren't normal. 1. Do not leave the cabin after sundown. 2. If you hear knocking, do not answer. 3. If you see lights moving beyond the fence line, turn off all cabin lights immediately. 4. Do not use the satellite phone between 12 a.m. and 3 a.m. 5. If you hear your name being called outside, do not respond. 6. If the cabin radio turns on by itself, unplug it and place it in the sink. 7. Do not open the shed under any circumstances. I looked up at him, waiting for him to smile. He didn't. This is a joke? I asked. He stared at me like I was stupid. No, he said. These rules exist because people don't listen. I tried to laugh it off, but it came out weak. What happens if I break a rule? He leaned closer, and his voice dropped. Then it will know you're here, he said. My skin prickled. What will? I asked. He didn't answer. Instead, he pointed to the cabin door. Food's inside. Water's inside. You log sensor readings 3 times a day. If something happens, you call the number on the satellite phone. Then he turned, got into his truck, and drove away, leaving me alone in the heat. I watched the dust trail fade until there was nothing but silence. I stood there, holding that laminated sheet, feeling stupid for being scared. Then I saw the shed. It was small, windowless, and padlocked. Something about it bothered me instantly. Like it didn't belong with the rest of the setup. I forced myself to focus on the cabin. Inside, it was basic: bed, table, small kitchen, a battery-powered lantern, and an old radio plugged into an outlet connected to a generator outside. There was also the satellite phone, sitting on the table like a lifeline. I spent the first day doing my tasks. Checking readings. Writing numbers on a form. Eating canned food. Nothing strange happened. By late afternoon, the heat started fading, and the sky turned this deep orange. I remember thinking it was beautiful. Then the sun dipped, and everything changed. The desert cooled fast. Shadows got longer. The world felt hollow. I locked the cabin door without thinking. Rule number 1. When it was fully dark, the stars came out so bright it almost didn't feel real. I stood by the window and stared out. The equipment beyond the fence sat there silently. Metal poles, sensor boxes, cables. And past that, nothing. Endless dark. That night, around 10 p.m., I heard the first sound. Knocking. Soft, slow knocks on the cabin door. My stomach dropped so hard it felt like I'd been punched. I froze in the middle of the room. The knocking continued. 3 knocks. Pause. 3 knocks. My mind scrambled for logic. Wind? Something hitting the door? An animal? But the knocks were too steady. Too deliberate. I stepped quietly to the window near the door and peeked out through the crack in the curtain. The porch was empty. No silhouette. No movement. The knocking stopped. I stood there, heart racing, waiting. A full minute passed. Then the voice came. It was muffled, like it was speaking through fabric. Hey, it said. A man's voice. Calm. Can you help me? I stepped back, shaking. Rule number 2. Don't answer. The voice continued. My truck broke down, it said. I saw your light. I looked around. My lantern was on, dim but visible through the window. The voice sounded normal. Human. Tired. It would have been so easy to answer. To say, "Who are you?" To ask if they needed water. But the laminated sheet was in my pocket like a weight. The voice said, "Please." Then it changed. Just slightly. Like the tone shifted, and the words became stretched. "Please open the door." My skin went cold. I backed away and turned off the lantern. The cabin went dark. Silence. For a moment, I thought it was over. Then something scraped across the porch. Slow. Like fingernails or metal dragging lightly over wood. I held my breath. The scrape moved along the porch, toward the window. I stared into the blackness, eyes straining. A shape pressed against the glass. Not a face. More like a shadow with weight. Then, very softly, right against the window, a whisper. My name. Perfectly said. Like someone I knew. I felt tears sting my eyes, purely from fear. Rule number 5. Don't respond. The whisper repeated my name again, slower. Then it laughed. It wasn't a normal laugh. It was breathy, like air escaping a cracked pipe. Then it was gone. I didn't sleep. I sat in the dark with a flashlight pointed at the door until dawn. When the sun rose, the cabin felt safe again, like whatever came at night had been burned away by daylight. I went outside immediately, furious at myself for being scared. The porch had scratches on it. Long, thin scratches. And right in front of the door, there were footprints. But they weren't normal footprints. They looked wrong. Too long. Too deep. Like something heavy had stood there, but the shape didn't match boots or shoes. I walked to the fence line and looked around. Nothing. No broken down truck. No tire tracks. Just empty desert. I tried to call the number on the satellite phone to tell them what happened. Then I remembered rule number 4 didn't apply yet, it wasn't midnight. So I called anyway. It rang twice. Then the woman answered, same calm voice as before. I told her about the knocking and the voice. She didn't sound surprised. She just said, "Did you open the door?" "No," I said. "Good," she replied. "What was it?" I demanded. A pause. Then she said, "Please follow the rules." "That's not an answer," I snapped. Another pause. Then, very softly, she said, "If you want to finish your contract, do not ask questions you don't want answered." And then she hung up. That day, I seriously considered leaving. But part of me was stubborn. Part of me wanted to prove it was just some weird prank. So I stayed. The second night was worse. It started with the lights. Around 11 p.m., I stood by the window again, staring out. I don't know why I kept looking. Maybe I thought if I saw it coming, I'd feel in control. Then I saw movement beyond the fence. A small light, like a flashlight, drifting slowly through the desert. At first, I felt relief. A person. Maybe the guy from last night was real. Maybe someone was out there. Then I noticed the way it moved. Not steady like someone walking. It bobbed and floated, like it was suspended. I remembered rule number 3. If you see lights moving beyond the fence line, turn off all cabin lights immediately. I killed the lantern and crouched low, watching from the darkness. The light drifted closer, closer. Then it stopped. Right at the edge of the fence. And then, another light appeared. Then another. 3 lights now, spaced apart like people standing shoulder to shoulder. But there were no bodies. Just lights. They hovered at about head height. And they stayed completely still. My mouth went dry. Minutes passed. Then the cabin radio clicked on. It wasn't loud at first, just static building slowly, like a storm forming. Rule number 6. Unplug it and put it in the sink. My hands shook as I crossed the room. The radio volume increased on its own, the static getting louder, filling the cabin like it was alive. I yanked the plug out of the wall. The static didn't stop. The radio kept playing, even unplugged. My heart slammed against my ribs. I grabbed it with both hands, heavy, dusty, vibrating, and carried it to the sink. I dropped it in hard. The moment it touched the metal basin, the static stopped. Complete silence. I stood there, breathing hard, staring at it. Then, from outside, a voice called. Not the same voice as before. This one sounded like my mother. Soft, worried. "Are you in there?" it called. "Honey?" My eyes filled with tears. Not because I believed it, but because it sounded so real it hurt. "Please," the voice said. "Open up. I'm cold." Rule number 5 again. If you hear your name being called, do not respond. I clenched my jaw so hard it hurt. The voice shifted. It became lower. Meaner. "Open the door," it hissed. Then there was banging. Not gentle knocking, banging, like fists slamming into wood. The whole door shook. I backed away, holding the flashlight like it was a weapon. The banging stopped suddenly. Then, a quiet click. Like the shed lock outside had been opened. I froze. Rule number 7. Do not open the shed under any circumstances. But I hadn't. So why did I hear that? Then I heard footsteps. Heavy footsteps in the sand. Moving away from the cabin, toward the shed. I held my breath, listening. The footsteps stopped. Then, a sound that made my stomach twist. A slow, wet creak. Like a door being pulled open. I stood there in the dark, trembling, staring at the wall as if I could see through it. Then something began to drag across the ground outside. A scraping, sliding sound, like something long and heavy being pulled toward the cabin. It got closer. And closer. Then it stopped right outside my window. For a long time, there was no sound at all. Then, very softly, right outside the glass, a whisper. "I can smell you." I covered my mouth so I wouldn't make a sound. The whisper chuckled. Then the lights beyond the fence blinked out, one by one. And the night went still. The next morning, I didn't care about the contract. I didn't care about the money. I packed my stuff, grabbed the satellite phone, and walked outside. The shed door was open. The padlock was still hanging there, intact. Like it had never been unlocked. But the door was cracked open just enough to show darkness inside. I stood a few feet away, staring. I didn't want to look inside. But I did anyway. Just a little. And what I saw made my blood run cold. There were claw marks on the inside of the door. Deep grooves like something had been trying to get out. And on the floor of the shed, there were strips of something that looked like dried skin. Like something had peeled. I backed away so fast I almost fell. Then I heard my name again, this time from the equipment area. I turned. One of the sensor poles had a small speaker on it. And it was playing a recording. My voice. From yesterday. A conversation I'd had with myself in the cabin, complaining out loud about the heat. I stared, frozen, as my own voice echoed across the desert. Then the recording ended, and a new voice came through the speaker. Low. Close. Don't leave. I didn't think. I just ran to my car, threw everything inside, and drove. As I sped down the dirt road, the satellite phone rang on the passenger seat. I glanced at it, terrified. Rule number 4 didn't matter now. I didn't care. I answered, hands shaking. The woman's calm voice came through. You're leaving early, she said. Yes, I snapped. I'm done. A pause. Then she said, Did you open the shed? No, I said. But something did. She sighed, like someone tired. Then she said, If you take the road to the left at the next fork, you'll get back faster. I frowned. There was a fork ahead, barely visible through the dust. How do you? I started. But she interrupted. Take the left, she repeated. Something about her tone made my skin crawl. I said, I'm taking the main route. Silence. Then, softly, like she was smiling. It knows you're leaving. The line went dead. A minute later, I reached the fork. Left looked smoother. More traveled. Right looked rough, less used, but it was the way I came in. The way I knew. I took the right. As soon as I did, my rearview mirror filled with dust, like something was following too close behind, kicking up sand. I squinted. No car. Just dust. Then, for a second, I saw a shape in it. Tall. Too tall. Moving fast. I pressed the gas harder, hard hammering. The dust stayed with me for miles, right on my tail, like something running just out of sight. When I finally hit pavement and saw the first sign of civilization, the dust cloud disappeared instantly, like it had never been there. I never took another job like that. But sometimes, late at night, when my room is quiet and my phone is off, I swear I hear soft knocking. 3 knocks. Pause. 3 knocks. And a voice, calm and patient, whispering my name like it's been waiting. This one wasn't my job. It wasn't some creepy listing or some weird company with rules. This one happened because my cousin Tyler loved exploring places nobody cared about. Tyler was that guy who would climb abandoned buildings for fun and sneak into places he wasn't supposed to. He always said it made him feel alive. Most people never go anywhere, he told me once. They live in a loop. Same roads, same stores, same faces. I want to see what's outside the loop. So when he asked me to go with him on a quick trip, I should have known it wouldn't be quick. He had this idea to visit a tiny island off the coast. Not a tourist spot. Not a beach resort. Just a rocky chunk of land with trees and an old, decommissioned lighthouse. How do you even know it's there? I asked him. He grinned and tapped his laptop. Forums, he said. Old posts. People used to fish near it. There's a landing spot on the north side. Is it legal? I asked. He shrugged. Nobody cares. That was Tyler's favorite phrase. So we rented a small boat, nothing fancy, just enough to get out there and back. We packed water, food, camping gear, and a handheld GPS. The island wasn't that far. Maybe an hour and a half out. At first, the ocean was calm. Bright sky. Sun on the water like broken glass. Tyler drove the boat, and I sat up front, trying not to think about what could go wrong. Then, about 40 minutes in, the fog started rolling in. Not a light haze. Real fog. Thick enough that the horizon disappeared. Tyler slowed down and checked the GPS. "We're good," he said. "Just keep heading west." The fog wrapped around us like a blanket. The world became water and gray air. The sound of the engine felt too loud. Every now and then, a distant bird would cry out, and it sounded lonely in a way I didn't like. Then Tyler pointed. "There," he said. At first, I thought he was messing with me. But through the fog, I saw a dark shape rising out of the water. The island. It looked wrong. Not like a friendly little place you camp on. It looked like a hunched animal, crouched low, covered in trees that leaned inward like they were trying to hide something. We found the landing spot, more like a rocky inlet, and Tyler killed the engine. The silence that followed was heavy. Even the birds were quiet here. We climbed out and pulled the boat in as best we could, tying it off to a thick root that stuck out near the rocks. "See?" Tyler said, smiling. "Easy." I didn't smile back. Something about the air felt stale. Like it hadn't moved in a long time. We hiked inland toward the lighthouse. The trees were dense, and the ground was damp, even though it hadn't rained. I noticed something weird almost immediately. No bugs. No mosquitoes. No flies. Not even the annoying little gnats you usually get near water. Just silence. Tyler noticed too. "Kind of nice," he said. "Yeah," I muttered. "Or kind of bad." The lighthouse came into view after about 20 minutes. It was taller than I expected, white paint peeling, windows dark. The door was boarded up, but Tyler found a way in through a broken side panel. Inside, it smelled like wet wood and mold. Tyler clicked on his flashlight and shined it around. The beam caught old equipment, rusted metal, and a spiral staircase leading upward. He looked like a kid on Christmas. "We're going up," he said. I hesitated. "Do we need to?" He laughed. "Come on." So we climbed. The stairs creaked under our weight. Dust fell in thin streams. The air got colder as we went up, like the lighthouse was holding on to old winter. At the top, we reached the lantern room. The glass panes were cracked and fogged, but you could still see the ocean through them, a gray blur beyond the fog. Tyler shined his flashlight around and found something that made him stop. Carvings. Scratched into the walls. Not names like you'd see in a normal abandoned place. Not "Tyler was here" stuff. These were symbols. Repeating patterns. Circles inside circles. Lines that looked like waves. And words written in shaky, uneven letters. Tyler leaned in, reading. I felt my stomach tighten. The words were simple. Don't look back. Don't answer. Don't follow the lights. Tyler laughed, but it sounded forced. "Okay, creepy." I swallowed. "Let's go." Tyler didn't want to leave yet, but he did. He kept his flashlight beam moving, like he didn't like what the darkness might hide. We decided to camp near the edge of the woods, not on the beach. The fog was still thick, and the ocean sounded far away even though we weren't that deep inland. As the sun faded, the island got darker fast. Tyler started a small fire, and the flames made the trees flicker like they were moving. We ate in silence for a while. Then Tyler said, "You hear that?" I paused, listening. At first, I heard only the crackle of the fire. Then, something else. A soft sound far off. Like a bell. A lighthouse bell. But this lighthouse didn't have a working bell. It didn't even have power. The sound came again. Ding, ding. Slow and steady. Tyler's grin faded. That's weird. We both stood up. The fog between the trees seemed thicker now, like a wall. The bell's sound continued. Ding, ding. Then, a light flickered in the fog. A faint glow, moving between tree trunks. Tyler's eyes lit up. Someone else is here. I grabbed his arm. No. We're leaving. He shrugged me off. It's probably a boat. Or someone checking the lighthouse. The light moved closer. It wasn't bright like a flashlight. It was softer, like a lantern. And it was low to the ground, swaying gently. Tyler took a step toward it. I hissed, "Tyler, stop." He looked back at me, annoyed. What? Then, from the fog, a voice called out. Tyler? We both froze. Tyler's face went pale. What the? The voice sounded like his sister. My cousin Kayla. But Kayla wasn't here. Kayla was back home. The voice called again, closer. Tyler? I can't see. Where are you? Tyler's mouth opened, like he was about to answer. I grabbed his shirt hard. Don't. He looked at me, eyes wide, confused, and scared. That's Kayla's voice, he whispered. I know, I whispered back. That's why you don't answer. The lantern light swayed closer. The bell dinged again. And then, just beyond the fog, we saw a shape. A person. Barely visible. Standing between the trees, holding the lantern. Tyler took a shaky breath. Kayla? I tightened my grip. Tyler. No. The person stepped forward. The lantern glow hit their face. And my blood turned to ice. Because it wasn't a face. It was wrong. The skin looked smooth, like it had been stretched. The mouth was too wide, lips barely there. The eyes reflected the lantern light like animal eyes. But the voice that came out was Kayla's. Tyler, it said softly. Come here. Tyler stumbled backward. The thing tilted its head. The lantern light flickered. Then it smiled. And I swear the smile didn't match the voice at all. It was like something learning how to imitate a human expression. I grabbed Tyler's arm and pulled him away from the fire. We're going to the boat, I whispered urgently. Tyler nodded, too shocked to argue. We left the camp, food, gear, everything. The only thing we kept were our flashlights. We moved fast through the trees, trying to retrace our path. But the fog made everything look the same. And behind us, the bell kept ringing. Ding, ding. Not fading. Following. Then we heard footsteps. Not crashing through brush like an animal. Soft steps, steady, like a person walking calmly. Tyler whispered, It's following us. I didn't answer because my throat was too tight. We reached what we thought was the rocky inlet where we landed. But when we pushed through the trees, my heart dropped. No boat. No water. Just more fog and trees. Tyler spun around. That's not right. I forced myself to breathe. We went the wrong way. The bell dinged again, closer now. Tyler's voice shook. How? We walked straight. The fog ahead brightened slightly. The lantern glow was back. And the voice, Kayla's voice, called softly. Tyler, you left me. Tyler covered his ears. Stop. We ran. Branches whipped our faces. The ground felt uneven, like it was shifting under our feet. Then Tyler tripped and slammed to the ground with a grunt. I grabbed his arm to pull him up, and that's when my flashlight beam swept across the trees. There were more carvings. Not on the lighthouse now. On the trees themselves. The same circles. The same wave lines. And something else scratched in deep. Don't look back. I remembered the words from the lighthouse wall. My stomach twisted. Because Tyler had just fallen, an instinct screamed to look behind us for what was coming. But I didn't want to. I didn't want to see it closer. Tyler got up, breathing hard. "Where's the boat?" he gasped. I said, "Keep moving." The bells stopped suddenly. The silence that followed was worse. Then Tyler's GPS beeped in his pocket. He pulled it out with shaking hands. The screen was glitching, flickering like it couldn't decide where we were. Tyler frowned. "It says, we're not on an island." I stared. "What?" He turned the screen toward me. The map showed open ocean. No land. No island at all. Our location marker floated on water like we were standing on nothing. Tyler whispered, "That's impossible." Then the lantern light appeared again, right ahead of us this time. It swayed gently, like it was waiting. Tyler backed up slowly. "How is it in front of us?" I swallowed hard. "Because we're not going anywhere." A voice came through the fog. Not Kayla this time. It was Tyler's own voice. Calm, inviting. "Come on," it said. "This way." Tyler's eyes filled with tears. "That's me." The lantern light drifted closer. And then, behind us, another lantern glow appeared. And another. Like we were surrounded. Tyler grabbed my sleeve. "What do we do?" I didn't have an answer. Then, through the fog, we heard the ocean. Real ocean sound, waves crashing on rocks. It was close. I turned my head slightly, not fully looking back, and listened. The sound was coming from behind us. But the warning said don't look back. Tyler looked like he was about to panic completely. I made a choice. "Follow my voice," I whispered. "Don't look. Just walk backward." Tyler nodded, sobbing quietly. We turned our bodies slightly and began moving backward, using our flashlights angled down so we wouldn't see too much. The lantern lights stayed at the edges of our vision, flickering like fireflies that didn't belong. The voices whispered. "Mine." Tyler's. Kayla's. Sometimes voices we didn't recognize. All saying the same thing. "Come here. Just look. It's safe." I kept whispering to Tyler. "Don't look. Don't answer. Just keep moving." After what felt like forever, my heel hit rock. I heard water. The real inlet. I felt around blindly and found the rope tied to the root. The boat was there. Tyler let out this broken sound between a laugh and a sob. We climbed in fast, hands fumbling, almost capsizing in our rush. Tyler yanked the rope loose, and I grabbed the engine cord and pulled. Nothing. I pulled again. Still nothing. My hands shook so badly I almost dropped it. Then, from the shore, the bell rang again. Ding, ding. A lantern glow appeared at the tree line. Tyler whispered, "Start, start, start." I pulled a third time. The engine sputtered, then roared to life. We didn't even look back. Tyler gunned it, and we shot into the fog, the island disappearing behind us. For a long time, We heard the bell faintly, carried over the water. Then it stopped. The fog thinned as we got closer to the mainland. When we finally saw the shore lights, Tyler started laughing and crying at the same time. We docked, stumbled onto land, and sat there breathing like we'd been underwater. Tyler kept saying, "It's not on the GPS. It's not on the map." I didn't answer. Because my phone buzzed. A notification. No signal out there, but now we had service again. I looked down. It was a message from Kayla. Just one line. "Tyler, why did you call me from the ocean?" Tyler stared at the screen. "I didn't," he whispered. I opened my call log. There it was. An outgoing call to Kayla. Timestamp, while we were on the island. Duration 2 minutes. I felt cold all over. Because we didn't call her. We didn't answer anything. We didn't even talk loud enough for someone to hear us. But something out there had used Tyler's number anyway. And the last thing Kayla sent, before Tyler blocked her out of fear? A screenshot. It showed the missed call. And underneath it, her phone had tried to label the caller. Not Tyler's name. Not his contact. Just 6 words. Unknown lighthouse, calling from offshore. Which story scared you the most? Comment below and subscribe for more true horror stories. If you want to share your story with us, send us at belladarktales@gmail.com.